Is Jurassic World Evolution 3 worth it? That's the question I set out to answer when I picked this game up. It's the third game in the franchise, and while I enjoyed the first one a lot, the second one didn't quite hold my interest as much. So going into the third one, I had mixed expectations. I was hoping it would keep some of the simplicity of the first, but with new exciting features like in the second. And honestly, Jurassic World Evolution 3 delivered. Well, for the most part. The campaign was fun with a good mix of storytelling and challenge while simultaneously introducing new elements to the game. The dinosaurs are, as usual, beautifully made and they move and behave great, and their needs were easier to meet in this game than in the second game. Anyone remember how the sauropods in the second game were almost invisible due to the amount of forest they required in their enclosures? Because I do. And the big new feature of the third game, dino babies. They introduced male dinos and breeding, which is so exciting, and the babies are adorable. However, there are a few things I really hope they improve, and some issues I have in this game are the same ones I've had since the first game in the franchise. Like, first of all, why does it always zoom in on every single thing you click? It drives me nuts. I just want to, for example, click on my ranger team so I can assign them to patrol posts, but here I am, zoomed all the way in, and the game does this for everything you click on that you can interact with. Constantly having to zoom out whenever you click on anything to perform any management tasks is tedious as all hell. The only way you can kind of mitigate this is using nothing but hotkeys for your Ranger, MVU, and maintenance teams. But you're shit out of luck when you need to interact with any of the buildings, such as hatcheries or guest amenities, because zoom in you will whether you like it or not. And why do we not have more easily accessible genome library, like the Planet Zoo Zoopedia? Currently, you can only access the genome library in two ways, either through a hatchery or through clicking the info button on an already hatched dinosaur, which is clunky at best and really inconvenient at worst. The genome library itself is also, in my opinion, missing some important information and quality of life features that would make it so much easier to use. For example, why doesn't it say on the dinosaur itself what family it belongs to? I am no paleontologist, so I don't know my hadrosaurs from my pachysaurs at a glance. Now, I've learned that there is this little filter button at the top to sort dinos by different categories, including family group, where you can see this information. But it's not on by default, and honestly, I didn't even find out about it until someone in my chat explained it existed tens of hours into playing. It is quite unintuitive. I would also love to be able to click the different family categories on a dino's cohabitation page so I can immediately go to the section I'm looking for, because right now, when you want to find species that can cohabitate, there is a lot of clicking back and forth. As a Planet Zoo fan, I am also deeply missing the zoo overview, or in this case, I guess, dino overview, if you will. You know, a list where I can see every dinosaur and staff member in the park and do some basic maintenance actions, like a quick way to turn on and off contraceptives in the dinos, and a quick way to select specific dinos or staff in general. Now, again, there is a list of all the dinos in the park if you go into the map view and click the little expand arrow button to the left, but it doesn't really have any functionality apart from just existing. Like, if you click any dino in the list, the only thing that happens is that the camera jumps to its general location. I would have assumed if you click a dino and leave the map view, it would at least select that specific dino, but nope. It's just not very useful. Another thing is the structured breeding program. I have, to this moment, still not been able to use it at all. When I click on the Create Plan button in a nest and I have eligible females and males available, I cannot click the female or male slot to choose my breeding pair. Like, it's just unclickable entirely. This mechanic is very poorly explained, and yeah, I still haven't been able to use it whatsoever. I've tried to get this to work in Sandbox too, and it doesn't work for me either. Caveat is maybe this is a bug and I've just been unlucky, but if anybody else has run into this, please let me know, and if so, how how did you fix it? Another little nitpick I have is that I would also love to be able to see enclosure size and fence strength requirements for the different species, as well as info on how big the current enclosure they are in is. Because right now, it's always a bit of a guessing game of how big you need to make them and how strong the fences need to be at minimum. I mean, at least luckily we can see the existing fence strength at least, but the only thing I've found that might indicate what they need is the little shield icon in the genome library with a number inside of it, but it has no information when you hover over it to explain what it actually does or means. So, to the best of my knowledge, it's some sort of safety rating, but the shield kind of looks like the shield icon on the fences, so I've been trying to use that as somewhat of an indicator of how strong a fence you need. But again, it's not entirely clear, and since there is no explanation to what that number in the shield icon on the dinosaur actually means in the genome library, I could be completely talking out of my ass right now about what it actually means, since I honestly don't really know and I'm just guessing. Maybe it's intentional for gameplay reasons, but as someone who enjoys trying to optimize my enclosures a lot, it would make it more fun for me personally. Oh, and another quick side note about the lagoons. They look so boring. We have no water settings to make it clearer, murkier, or different colors so that we can choose to see the dinos better or worse or make it more atmospheric, and it's just so barren. They did introduce more scenery items that we can place inside the lagoons, like rocks, one kind of seaweed, and teeny tiny corals, but it's very limited and doesn't really make that big of a difference in my opinion. But lastly, let's talk performance, because when the second game launched, it became nearly unplayable at times because of the lag increasing so sharply once you got more guests and more items in the park, and this has also been a problem in Planet Zoo, regardless of how powerful your PC is. However, they seem to have largely solved that in this third game. This time around, I actually had a really smooth experience with barely any lag at all, which was great. The only lag I encountered was when I was terraforming large pieces of lands all at once, but it was very minuscule and totally manageable in comparison. Oh, and if you're wondering why I'm making all these Planet Zoo references, it's because it's the same developer. Now that we talked about most of the game features, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I encountered quite a few bugs in my playthrough, some of which could have stopped my campaign progression entirely if I was unluckier. I'll list some of the most noticeable bugs I got and how I fixed them where possible. So first up, contracts stopped registering that they completed. I could keep adding more contracts, but none of them replaced each other or completed properly. They just sat there in the list with the checkmark claiming they were completed, but with no rewards given and never clearing out from the list. However, restarting the game fixed it, so if you're facing this, restart your game. Then, I had an enclosure bug on Malta, where the original enclosure that is set up is not deemed as fully intact and will mark all dinos as a danger to people, even when they're inside the barriers and not actually escaping. There is a little cliff here that you have to build barriers through to make it count as fully enclosed again. And this issue first started appearing after the first sandstorm. So, I don't know. It was kind of difficult to find at first, but that was the solution that worked for me. Then we have the missions on the Japan map, which randomly reset to the very beginning when I was close to 5-starring the map. My park remained intact, as if it was close to getting 5-starred, but all of the campaign missions were back to 0, as if I just begun playing the mission all over again. I had to play through each task once more, and it was pure luck that I could complete the herding mission, you know, where you have to go to the locations to herd Stegosaurus and Cories into their enclosures again, because the locations that you needed to rendezvous to by driving the ranger team there were currently inside other enclosures at this point, and one of them were under deep water in my case. And this issue did not resolve after restarting the game, so my only option was to complete the missions all over again. It wasn't too bad, but if I hadn't been able to get close enough to the rendezvous points, it would have halted my campaign progression entirely, since my management controls are grayed out and inaccessible during these initial tasks. So terraforming the deep water away to make the points reachable wasn't an option. When the Japan mission reset, it also reset every single dig site, including the ones that were already fully dug out. Luckily, I could just re-explore these and sell all the extra fossils, so it was just a tedious inconvenience. However, this bug did persist through multiple restarts, so if it happens to you, you just kind of have to deal with it unless you want to restart your entire campaign from scratch. There were another few small bugs like hotkeys stopping working, dinos you were meant to herd being out of bounds of the map, or an oviraptor's tail getting hilariously longer. But those were not the end of the world, and at least some were easily resolved by restarting the game. All in all, I spent around 42 hours completing the campaign and 5-starring every mission on stream. And despite the potentially mission-breaking bugs, I did have a fun time overall. So, was Jurassic World Evolution 3 worth the money? Well, the game is currently being sold for £50 or even £65 for the deluxe edition on Steam, which is pretty high because of the Jurassic World branding. But I do feel like I personally got my money's worth, and that's before touching the sandbox or challenge modes. However, if you're the kind of person who gets turned off by having to deal with some possibly quite time-consuming bugs, I would recommend maybe holding off until future patches where they hopefully fix some of the more egregious ones. Like, I'm looking at you, Japan map. Or wait for a sale. But I'm curious, have you been playing Jurassic World Evolution 3? What have you liked or not liked about the game so far? Let me know in the comments below if your experience has been similarly bug-filled as mine, and I'll see you later. Bye!